Hi everyone, welcome back to our channel. Today's video is about my top 5 least favorite books that I have ever read. Therefore, this video is bound to be a bit entertaining, but definitely kind of ranty, so prepare yourself for that. Before I launch into my top 5, I do want to do a few honorable mentions, books that I also really didn't enjoy, but they couldn't quite crack the top 5. The first one would have to be Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I read this one in high school when I was 14, and my god was it boring to 14-year-old me. Maybe I should give it another shot, but whew, it was really hard for me to get through, and I felt like I didn't understand what was happening half the time, but The second honorable mention is The Gathering by Anne Enright. This one I read a little bit more recently, but I could not get into her writing style. That was such a boring book. And I understand that some people love her writing. I think it really comes down to your preferences, but I just remember being incredibly bored with that book. I think I did finish reading it, maybe I DNF'd it, but I definitely gave that book away. I do not own that book anymore. The last honorable mention I have is Teaching a Stone to Talk by Annie Dillard. I believe I read this for a booktube-a-thon a few years ago because it was short and I was like, it'll be no problem. No, it was a problem. It's just a book of short stories, so you can kind of hope that if you finish one, the other one might be easier, you know, to get through, something like that. I remember reading one of them and it was something about explorers, and so I was okay with that one, but then there was just some stories that were so over my head and so wordy and just I think I feel a bit guilty because somebody gave me this book as a gift, and that's why I haven't given it away yet, but I can confidently say that I did not enjoy my reading experience with this one. Alright, and now on to the official top 5. I wouldn't say these are in a particular order, maybe except for the last one, and you will find out why when I get there. The first one that I want to mention is The Silmarillion by J.R.R. Tolkien. For those of you that are aware of The Lord of the Rings, you might be aware of The Silmarillion. It's essentially a prequel book, kind of like The Hobbit, but way before that as well. I read The Hobbit, really enjoyed it, read The Lord of the Rings, thought it was okay, read The Silmarillion, and was bored out of my freaking mind. It is like an origin story for the entire world, and it's really hard to follow, albeit I did read it when I was a bit younger, but even just looking at it now, I just, no, it is not. I'm never gonna reread this book. The only reason I have it is because I want to keep it with The Hobbit and The Lord of the Rings to like have the series together, but my god was this a slog. If you're a huge fan of The Lord of the Rings and you love the world building, this might be worth your time. But if you're more of a casual fan who read the books because you enjoyed the movies or read the books because they're one of the most revered books of all time, skip The Silmarillion. It is not worth your time. The next book that I want to highlight is one of my least favorite books of all time, is Walden by Henry David Thoreau. I read this book in high school as part of my AP English class, and Les will also remember this time in our lives where we were forced to read this piece of crap. Now some of you might be saying, okay Rebecca, calm down a little bit here, it sounds like you have a lot of pent-up feelings about Henry David Thoreau. I'll admit I've never read anything else by him because Walden turned me off so much. I found Walden to be very preachy and hypocritical. He's talking about going into the woods and being away from society and being self-reliant and all this stuff, and then he freaking walks down the country lane to the nearest town to get food, and I'm like, okay, well what about being self-reliant here? You're going on about like living alone and embracing nature and like why would you want to be around other people and all this crap, and then he freaking walks down the street to go get food. I just remember being really offended by that. And I think Les felt the same way, if I remember correctly. Neither of us were huge fans of that book. And it's really unfortunate because Henry David Thoreau does seem to have some nice quotes out there. I actually have a bookmark with a quote of his on it that somebody gave me. But man, Walden did not impress. The next one I need to mention is Wide Sargasso Sea by Jean Rhys. This one is a classic, but not in the same sense as some other classics. Basically what happened was I read Jane Eyre in my senior year of high school, and I really enjoyed Jane Eyre. I have this distinct memory of it being cold outside, and I'm cuddled up on the couch with some hot chocolate, and I'm doing my required chapter readings for Jane Eyre, and I am just totally into it. And then, after we finished Jane Eyre, we had to read Wide Sargasso Sea, because it's basically a prequel written by somebody else about a character in Jane Eyre. And I was expecting something better. After the awesomeness that is Jane Eyre, Wide Sargasso Sea was such a disappointment. I mean, I understand it was AP Lit, there was certain books that we should be reading in order to prepare us for the AP exam, but man, if we had skipped that one, I would not have missed it. The second to last one is one that if you have been on this channel for a bit, you will certainly recognize it, and that is Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro. I have an entire video where I discuss this book and basically end up in a rant because I was very disappointed with it. I was expecting something else from it, and Kazuo Ishiguro is a very respected author, and this is the only thing I've read by him. I by no means am discounting him and all his other books. I'm certainly willing to read something else by him, but I think because of the amount of just continual hype that this book has had and how many people liked it, my sister had to read it for school, I never had to read it, so I was like, okay, I found this at a library book sale, I'll give it a shot. And I was just so disappointed with how it decided to take the story and how the characters were written and developed. If you want more details, I will link my rant video up above here. I understand that there are certain parts of this book that are good, and certain parts that sort of redeemed other parts for me, which is why I gave it 2 stars on Goodreads. But based on the hype that I had heard and seeing the movie and even sort of knowing the story going into it, it was just very disappointing. Alright folks, so my least favorite book of all time is currently Harry Potter and the Cursed Child by John Tiffany and Jack Thorne. There will be a bit of spoilers with this one, so just a warning for any of you that have not read it and plan on reading it, I will be talking about a couple things that are spoilery. Where to begin? Where to begin? I was so offended by this book. The fact that it wasn't even written by J.K. Rowling, but she endorsed it, is just no. I understand that it's a play, and plays are meant to be seen in theaters. But if you're going to release the script book, I have a right as a reader to judge the script book too. And it was just completely offensive to anybody who has read and enjoyed the Harry Potter series. There were so many character regressions. I mean, we had seen the snippet from 19 years later in Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows, so we had an idea, but a very minimal idea of what their life is like. However, the last line of the book is talking about how all was well, and this was clearly not the case if Harry Potter and the Cursed Child is to be considered canon. Some of the decisions that they made were just so against the characters that we had grown to know and love in 7 books, and do not get me started on the fact that I'm supposed to believe that Voldemort had a child. You expect me to believe that this guy, who never cared about anyone other than himself and being immortal and having all of this power, gives a crap about having a kid? Bellatrix, I can totally believe Bellatrix. She was his most devoted servant. She loved him in whatever way Bellatrix can love someone, and she would have gladly had this child. But Voldemort, no, Voldemort would never have considered having a kid. That is just not something that Voldemort would do. The only redeemable part of that entire script book was the friendship between Albus Severus and Scorpius. Their friendship was fantastic, and I enjoyed it. I know there are a bunch of people out there that ship them, and I think if that had happened in the play, it might have redeemed a bit for me, because it would have been sort of stepping out of the mold of what Harry Potter has covered before and actually sort of pushed the series in a really good direction. But of course it didn't happen, and we had all that other shit that took place, and I refuse to associate it with the series. It's like everything else is here and Harry Potter and the Cursed Child's just over here. I don't know if I could even be bothered to see the play at this point. It's just, no. As a Harry Potter fan, it just makes me so, so angry. Okay, alright, I think I got it all out there. Considering I never filmed an official review of that script book, I feel like this was my chance to get my feelings out there other than in my, very short review on Goodreads. If you guys have any particular feelings on the books that I mentioned here today, feel free to say them down below. Whether you hate the book like me, or maybe you like it a bit more than me, feel free to share your opinion. I understand that books that I love, other people hate, so of course books that I hate, other people are gonna love them. As always, all of our links are in the doobly-doo. Please check those out if you feel so inclined. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I'll see you later.